Sports Underground finally back on the air after months and months of a hiatus. We're glad to be back with you for fantasy football talk. Football season definitely in the air. Packer fans talking all kinds of trash already. Viking fans dreaming that last year wasn't a fluke. And Paul Allen, or as you know in PA, being more annoying than ever.
Exactly right. I'm glad to be back, glad to be talking to fantasy football. I can't believe it's already here.
Yeah, it seems like it was just a month ago when the Super Bowl ended. And the NFL does a pretty good job of keeping things moving along.
Yep.
You're never really out of the loop, but with the Twins being terrible and with the Wild going out in a flurry in the playoffs, it's nice to have something a little positive to look forward to.
Yeah, it is. And the NFL does a good job of selling the whole league. You know what I mean? You can always find someone to root for or some team to kind of root for and rally around. So it's fun to watch all the way around for me.
Right. So this video is going to talk some fantasy football, something we've not delved into a lot on the show, but we love fantasy football. We play a lot, whether it be online with our friends. We have a league we've been in now for, I bet it's been 10 years at least, same kind of guys in it. And just a side note on that, I am the two-time defending champion, so I just wanted everyone to know that I am great at what I'm talking about. No comment on that?
No.
Do you want to mention where you finished in that league?
Second all the time.
Yeah, behind me. That's what I'm talking about. So
No, between us, we're actually pretty good. We actually have some knowledge about fantasy football, and I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the strategy we use anyway. And I wanted to bring up too, kind of starting out, it's almost as much strategy as luck. Also with the player injuries. Right. And kind of finding a good dynamic of your whole team, a whole player chemistry, if you will. Mm-hmm. I know you don't have a locker room, but you know you got to have a plan in place in case Plan A goes down, Plan B has to step up.
Right. Well, here's a little philosophy I try and get, and you know it's kind of counterintuitive because on one hand I don't want to draft good players from bad teams,
right? But
at the end of the day, I want to have 4 number 1 receivers, or at the least a number 2 on my guys. So the first 2 guys go down, yep. I can turn to at least another starting receiver somewhere. So I'd like to fill my team with as many number 1s as I can.
Sure.
And I'll value maybe getting an extra number 1 receiver before I'll take a quarterback if I think the value is there. Always take defense last and last. Could care less about them. And a kicker right before that.
Right.
It really doesn't matter in the grand scheme.
I always put kicker one spot ahead of defense, but they're all a horse apiece. That's mm-hmm. him and I both have always talked about that. Defense and kickers always draft last.
A defense has never won me or lost me in a championship ever.
Right. Exactly right. But you know, getting back to a little philosophy, it's more it's luck and it comes down to, you know, where you draft your players. And you're exactly right. You want to get number 1 players. You want to find the guy that's going to emerge. And if you're going to take a rookie, make sure he's starting.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because a lot of times these teams come into the league and fans get all caught up in the hoopla of it. But make sure that your rookie is starting. Make sure that you kind of have done some research on that.
Yeah, it depends too when your draft is. You know, there's some leagues that draft very, very early. And then, you know, like last year, for example, Doug Martin and Alfred Morris, probably not as high on a list early in the fantasy drafts, but when Shanahan comes out and says Alfred Morris is going to be a starting running back, all of a sudden he's got a little more value. Obviously, no one expected him to blow up like he did. In a keeper league I'm in, I got him in the 2nd round, and all we draft is rookies. That tells you how low he was valued last year.
Right.
But if you can wait as long as possible to have your league drafts, you're going to be in a lot better position to make more informed choices.
And let the injuries play out.
Yeah,
you
and
know,
obviously
we've already had an enormous number of injuries this season.
And we're 3 or 4 days in the training camps. You know?
Yeah. So what are we going to be talking about next week with injuries? You never know.
Right. Every position, of course, has the few top-heavy guys. Tight end being the one where there's even fewer top-end guys, and the separation from the top guys to the bottom is so great. If you don't get the first couple of guys, move on and flip a coin later.
Yep, and I was going to say, I think starting out with quarterbacks, I think it's about 5 deep. I'll maybe give 5-ish. You know, you always have your Aaron Rodgers, Breeze, Brady, Manning. Mm-hmm. I'm going to throw Matt Ryan in there because I expect big things this year, and maybe not even, but from there you kind of go down to the Romos, the Eli Mannings.
Well, you've got there's 5 5-star quarterbacks.
Right.
There's 10 to 12 4-stars,
exactly.
And then you got your 3 and your 2. But if you don't get one of the top 5, don't panic. There's 10 more guys that are exactly like each other. It just doesn't matter.
That are going to put up some good numbers. And if you do get one of those top 5, 3, 4, 5 guys, wait for your second round quarterback, because those guys, those top 5 guys, are always, first of all, very reliable.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to put up some great numbers. You're never going to play that backup quarterback, and they don't get injured.
Yeah, you need them for a bye week. That's
Exactly.
usually all you need.
So
I mean, obviously, Manning missed a year, Brady missed a year,
We know that.
but for the most part, very valuable. The only asterisk to that would be your running quarterbacks. If you get a Russell Wilson, if you get
Exactly.
an RG3 or a Kaepernick,
But
then
those
you
are
may
still-
want. They're not they're not 5-star quarterbacks, absolutely. But that's when, if you draft them in the 5th or 6th round, maybe the 8th, 9th round, you look for your quarterback. Otherwise, you're waiting right before your kicker and defense to probably get a backup.
And there's probably no more interesting position in fantasy football right now than the quarterback, because you got a lot of changes. You got a lot of
It's evolved, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of evolution there with not only with the age of quarterbacks. You're talking about Kaepernick, RG3, Wilson, Luck, 4 guys off the top of my head that are simply coming into this league, but are taking it by storm.
Well, if you
And
think that
changing-
if Cam Newton was the #1 pick a couple years ago, Kaepernick was a 2nd-round pick in that draft, and you don't even mention Cam Newton in the same breath as RG3.
No,
Kaepernick,
yeah.
those guys. They've
But-
really taken over the league.
But remember when Cam Newton came to the league, and he was a rookie, didn't he rush for how many touchdowns did he? I mean, he
12,
was,
I believe. It was
a huge
a
number.
significant number of touchdowns. Yeah.
And then it fell off from there. Did it not?
It did.
mean, so they kind of figured it out. So be wary on where you draft your sophomore quarterbacks. It's almost
Right.
one of those rules, golden rules. Fool me once, but twice.
Right.
Make sure, maybe 2 years down the road is maybe a time to maybe take them a little bit higher. But let somebody else reach for them.
Right.
You know what I mean? I
Oh,
would say
absolutely. Yeah, when they're
somebody-
taking Russell Wilson the 2nd round,
Yeah.
I'll be taking my other #1 receiver,
Yep.
Wes Welker.
Exactly.
Name your guy. But I'll load up my receivers. You keep taking those guys. 5 rounds later, I'll get Ben Roethlisberger.
Yep.
He's going to be just as effective, and I'm going to have 2 receivers that are better than anything you have on your team.
Exactly right. Yep, exactly right. So you make up the ground that you get with that, giving up a top tier quarterback with the position you took. The 2 positions you're probably going to get.
Right. I agree with that. So back in the day, it was running back, running back, running back. That's all you drafted. That's all everyone wanted. Now, once again, there's Peterson, there's McCoy, there's Foster, and then there's a whole slug
Yeah.
of Doug Martin, name your back, Marshawn Lynch, any of those guys you want to talk about.
CJ Spiller.
Right, exactly. But there's 3 or 4, and everyone else fills in. And the difference with running backs versus receivers or quarterbacks, they get hurt. They get hurt all the time.
So-
and you always find the third running back on Tampa Bay's roster. Somehow he's going to have something to say about it
Yeah.
before the year's done. No Sean Marino last year being a very good example. He wasn't even mentioned as getting a carry for the Broncos. All of a sudden, I pick him up in the league. He's getting me 20 points a week because he was their goal line back, and just because of injury to Willis McGahee.
A couple of rules that don't apply to some of the other positions in fantasy football. You can safely draft a rookie there.
Mm-hmm.
You may not want to have him as your #1 starter guy, but you can probably safely draft a rookie and have him produce for you.
Right.
And 2, you want to handcuff your guy.
You do.
Yeah.
And speaking about the rookie starting, I've had fairly good success, starting way back with LaDainian Tomlinson, drafting him #1 in the draft, and people thinking I was
Yeah.
crazy. But I had a good read. I liked him.
You beat that horse to death.
I did. and everyone that knows me knows that I drafted him #1. And then moving to Doug Martin last year, I didn't take a running back early. I threw all my chips in with him, and it worked out fairly well.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to load up on my receivers. That's not necessarily going to happen all the time, but if you have a feeling like that, that is the position where you probably can take the chance with a rookie, and the payoff's going to be better than, let's say, a quarterback
Well,
or receiver normally.
And it's always, it never fails in a draft. You always have a strategy, and you always have okay, I'm targeting these 3 guys, and then boom, 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 they go 1, 2, 3 in front of you, and you panic. That might be a point where you can handcuff a guy and be like, well, I might have to reach for him, but this is going to work out for me in the long run.
Right, and
You know what I mean?
talking about panicking, stick to your philosophy. Whatever you go into the draft thinking, don't change it because 2 of your guys got taken.
But there's always going to be that the first round, I would say the first 2 rounds are pretty scripted.
Right.
It comes down to the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, those rounds where you're like, I got that guy targeted, I want that guy, and then he goes.
Oh my God,
and
I
then
can't
you
believe
panic.
he's still there. And then,
Right, and then you panic.
I wasn't looking anywhere else. Always have a couple choices in mind when you get there. Some options to weigh. So yeah, let's say I'm looking and Steve Smith was my guy. He's still there. He goes, I don't want to freak out and take Jarius Wright from the Vikings
Yep.
because I think I need
Because
to
you
get a
need
receiver.
to get a
there.
receiver.
Right.
That might be a spot where you take your backup quarterback, where you might be like, nah, that guy's pretty good. I'll take a chance on him.
Or I start the tight end run there.
You might have trade bait. Exactly right. Yeah, the tight ends, we're going to get to them, but very interesting there too.
But yeah, it's just all about being prepared. Everyone's got the guy in the league who shows up, he just buys the book 5 minutes before he walks in, and it works out for him. But for that one guy, there's half the people in our league that I know of, I never have to worry about them beating me in fantasy football because they're not prepared, they don't have a strategy, they just sort of wait to see what gets taken, and they cross them straight off the list in the book. They have no thought of their own on there.
And they draft with what you did for me, not what you're going to do for me.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's more of a, it's always a progressive league. It's what you're going to do for me, not what you did for me 2 or 3. Well, this guy was good 2 or 3 years ago. But again, we look at Owen Daniels.
Right.
Okay. I hook, line, and sinker last year, and it bit me hard.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's not what you did for me a couple of years ago.
Well, those are the guys too that are calling into Church's show, going, "I have 3 running backs. Who should I start?" If you have to call someone to ask someone who you should start, I want you in my league, and I want you in my league right now. We'll get you in because
I'll take your $100.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for the donation, and let's move on.
Yep.
So, well, let's just go through these by position a little bit here, and we're not going to talk so much about the main guys. We all know who the main guys are.
Yep.
But at the quarterback position, who's a guy? The 5 top guys are gone. Who's your sleeper? And not really sleeper, but who's your guy in those next 10 that you're looking to maybe get in the 4th, 5th, 6th round?
I got 2 guys that come to mind right away, and I have always had good luck with Matthew Stafford, simply because I know he kind of goes out of the whole draft good players on good teams because their Lions aren't always a good team, but he throws the ball a ton.
Right.
He does what you want him to do. He may not score a rushing touchdown, but he's going to get 302 or 3 touchdowns just about every week, and you don't always think about him. Another guy I expect good things this year is Tony Romo.
Romo's always been a pretty good producer.
He has been, and I think this year's. I have a feeling this year. I think he's going to be all right. Barring injury and things like that. But
well, for me, you sit back and you let the quarterbacks kind of fall where they may. And Roethlisberger's always been a guy that I've always gotten late, and he's sort of like my go-to quarterback. And he always produces. Now they're kind of in a change, so maybe he's not the guy this year, but a guy I see very similar to him. Eli Manning.
Yep.
You never think about the guy, and
Always
somehow
there in the 10th
he's
round.
throwing 4,000 yards, and the receiving core is pretty good. And you never think of that guy. He's not flashy.
No,
Nobody likes him because he's not Peyton.
Yeah.
But in fantasy football, you can win leagues with a guy like that, and you don't have to. You can load up on receivers and running backs and sit back and get him in the 8th round every single year.
For playing in New York, it doesn't seem like the spotlight is on him.
Yeah, he's been able to deflect it very
he
well.
has been. He's been kind of under the radar.
As good as he is with no spotlight, you got Sanchez being that bad with the spotlight. It's pretty weird dynamic how that's worked out.
Exactly right.
But a guy I would stay away from, no matter what happens, is Jay Cutler. I want him nowhere on my team. He does put up some numbers, but he's going to lose a game for you in a week.
Yep.
More than he's going to win one for you.
When you want to rely on him, I don't think he's going to be there. A guy that has history of being a good fantasy quarterback, Phillip Rivers, I think definitely on a downturn. Along with
his best days are
with
behind
that
him.
team, I think we've milked that cow enough. I think it's time to put him to bed. But interesting. There's some interesting names out there that you can get late. What is Josh Freeman going to do for you? I don't know. Matt Schaub, what has he got left? I don't know.
Freeman's not a guy you want to draft as your starter, but you could take him as your second quarterback late if you get yourself a Romo or a guy like that. And maybe by halfway through the year, maybe Freeman's your guy. He's probably not going to be, but he could be.
I hate to say it, but look at Chad Henne last year with the Jaguars. Nobody knew it, but he was putting up some pretty good fantasy numbers. I don't think they were winning any games, but he was chucking the ball.
Yeah, he was. And they were scoring 30 points. They were losing, but they were scoring some points.
Right.
Yeah.
So
rookie quarterbacks, the only guy in my eyes that has a chance to be successful is E.J. Manuel, and I don't even know if that's this year, but I think if you're in a keeper league, there's a guy you might want to get later on. I think he's going to be the best player in this draft, and possibly one of the top 10 quarterbacks within a couple of years. That's just my take.
I agree with what I've seen. I think the poor thing with him is the situation. The Bills haven't been a historically good team. I mean, outside of Jim Kelly,
right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
So kind of tough there, but I don't know. What do you think about running backs?
Well, moving on to running backs, obviously we know Peterson, we know Foster, we've seen them play. They're not going to surprise us. A couple of places I would look at maybe some value would be rookies here. And I like I said, I'm a big rookie running back kind of guy. Bell in Pittsburgh, to me, seems to be the best fit with losing Wallace, the way their offense is kind of going, they're getting older everywhere. They might want to change their style and grind it out a little more. He looks like a guy that's probably 11 to 1,200 yards and 8 to 10 touchdowns. I like that. I'm not a big fan of Eddie Lacy in Green Bay. I think he's going to split carries. And the other guy, Monty Ball, even as late as he was drafted,
Yep.
the Broncos are going to be pretty potent. They're going to have a lot of chances to score, and I think he's going to be the smashing goal line guy. Not a lot of yards probably, but going to probably
Maybe not,
have
but-
9 to 10 touchdowns at the end of the year.
I mean, historically, the only running back I can think of that Eli Manning or Peyton Manning had was Edgerrin James, and a good career, but not lighting the league on fire. Had a couple
He
good
did have a
years.
die. A die was good for a year or two.
Okay, I'll give you that one. But okay.
Well, Edgerrin was pretty. I mean, Edgerrin was pretty good.
He was good. Yeah,
But-
he was good. But
But they didn't have the receiving core as good as Harrison and Wayne were. They didn't have that third receiver like Denver does.
Yeah.
And it does seem like a little too much player for the ball to go around to everyone. But as a rookie, you take him later in the draft, probably a guy you can stick in there for a week or two, and maybe at the end of the year, maybe he's a starter for you.
yeah. I'm going to give you a list of some guys here that I don't want to touch this year. Okay, Ray Rice.
One of my guys that would definitely be on his career isn't going to be going upward just because of the situation of the team, not so much him.
It's not. You're exactly right. The team situation is going south in a hurry. I'm not even sure if they're a playoff team. It's going to be tough for the
Yeah,
Ravens to bounce back for anything like that. And Ray Rice is going to.
And he's going to have to carry more of that offense.
He's going to be a casualty of that.
Yeah, I
big
agree.
time. Matt Forte, I don't trust him.
Never drafted him, never will.
Steven Jackson.
Ugh.
Like the
I
situation
like
better.
I like
in
this,
Atlanta.
but Atlanta's still a pass first team.
Yeah, and
And
his history of injuries and his history of not really.
well, he's never been in the spotlight.
Well,
he's never been in a
no,
big pressure
and-
situation because the Rams have been so bad. What does he do when the game's on the line and you need him to get you yards or you need him to get a touchdown? Does he fumble? You have no idea.
Has he ever lived up to the hype?
No.
I don't think so either.
For such a bad team and a bad situation, you hear a lot more about him than you probably should have. And
Probably right.
that's my opinion.
Probably right.
Always overvalued, overdrafted, and in money leagues, always overpaid.
Yep. Chris Johnson, I don't think we have to say anything there.
They
And,
have fixed their offensive line a little bit, which makes him a little better, but I'm not a Chris Johnson fan, and I will not have him on my team.
Not after
anytime soon.
last year. Not after last year at all. LaShawn McCoy is one of those guys that I don't know where he's going to fall here, but I kind of got a red flag on him. One more guy.
Yeah, he's probably not going to be the second or third pick in the draft like last year. But for me, I still like him. I think he gets you some receiving yards.
Yep.
He gets you, the rushing. The Eagles' offense is probably still going to be explosive, even if they are a bad team.
And he is a number one.
He is definitely a true number
I'm just
one.
saying, it's kind of
But
like
wear and tear, he's a small guy. When does it
It's-
catch up with him?
kind of like a yellow flag, not a red flag, but like just use caution.
The last sleeper I'm going to give you at the running back position, Reggie Bush out of Detroit. I think that even though he's been a disappointment for the most part through his career, I think the way their offense sets up, they're going to love to use him a lot.
And
A little scat back. Calvin's going to spread the field. I think Reggie Bush, he's not your true number one guy, but he'd be a great second running back
But
for you to have
I
started.
think he's going to be he's going to put up his best numbers this year, fantasy wise.
Right.
And that's not saying much because he hasn't historically been that great fantasy wise, but he's been solid. But I think this year's his greatest year. One more guy to avoid. I wanted to go back to Maurice Jones-Drew.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch him. Bad team, bad player.
Bad
The
situation.
wheels are about ready to fall off that guy. He's been beaten to a pulp for the last few years, so I would stay away from him as
Yep.
well. Moving on to wide receivers, we all know Calvin Johnson. A lot of hype behind Des Bryant this year.
I like
looking
him
to
a
take
lot.
the next step. It's going to cost you if you want him. You're going to
You're
have to
gonna have
put
to
your
reach
neck out there and take him early. He's not going to be there in the third
But
round.
I think
But
he's going to pay off.
The
for you.
returns could be huge for this guy.
It's the when you make that first round pick, decide what direction you're going to go
Mm-hmm.
in your second round. If you get a guy you like in the first round, you might want to reach for Des Bryant.
Right.
Because Calvin Johnson's not going to be there in the second round.
No, absolutely not.
Calvin Johnson's going to go in the first 12 picks, probably the first 10.
Yeah, and if he's gone the first 5, it wouldn't surprise me.
No, to be honest with you, I'd take him a lot ahead of a lot of the running backs.
I would too.
I-
Especially the way, like we said, the leagues have been
It's-
more passing. You
Yep.
3 or 4 receivers with a tight
And-
end versus before it was 2-2-2. I have a league I'm in where you can adjust your roster based on your personnel. 1 running back, 3 receivers. So there's a lot of depth at receiver position. But if you want a good one,
Yeah.
you got to go early and you got to go often.
Also a guy I like to watch, and that
Yeah.
means something too.
Absolutely.
You know.
A couple guys actually that I think are going to have rebound season. Larry Fitzgerald being number 1 on my list. Carson Palmer's not the quarterback there. Bruce Arians, very offensive-minded coach, comes in. That's going to help him. And here's a guy that no one ever talks about, and every year he's 1,000 yards. He gets his coach back, which makes his quarterback better, is Marcus Colston.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a guy, you'll be able to get him late, and he's going to be a very, very good receiver.
Yep, everyone's going to be hands off because he didn't do anything last year, but I agree.
Right.
I agree. I think there's a couple guys to stay away from here in this list. Andre Johnson comes to mind. I think he's used up a little bit.
Brandon Marshall, he might still have some good numbers, but the Bears are on decline. I would be leery of him.
Yep, I think so too. I think I'd let somebody else take him high. Percy Harvin's hip injury, what's he going to do there?
And Randall Cobb, I'm not sold on the juice in Green Bay. Yeah, he had an all right year last year, but prove it to me again, and then next year at this time I'll sit here and tell you to take him. I've got nothing with that guy.
For me, Mike Wallace is hands off too. I don't like the Miami move. I think he was better off fantasy wise in Pittsburgh.
Well, and the fact he seems like a kind of guy who went and got his money, and now he's set. He wanted to go to warm weather. He had so many things that it doesn't make him seem like a very tough football player. And I think his best days are behind him as well.
Can I give him my top 4 receivers?
You can.
I'll give you Calvin Johnson, Des Bryant, Julio Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
That does make sense. I like Julio.
Okay.
Who's your fourth?
My 4th guy, AJ Green.
AJ Green is very, very good. I wish the quarterback situation was a little bit better. Dalton's good, not flashy. And somehow they keep forcing the ball to him. You'd like to see something on the other side develop a little bit to give him a little more room. But yeah, AJ Green, fantastic receiver.
And it's almost just by default.
Yeah, you're probably right. Well, Calvin, obviously number 1 for me. I'm a big Des Bryant fan this year. I'm going to look at Vincent Jackson as a guy I put in the top 5. Tampa Bay, I think that their quarterback, Freeman, can be better. And Jackson had a very, very good year last year. So I like him. I like Victor Cruz to rebound. I don't know if he's in my top 5, but I think he's going to be better this year
I had
than
him
what he
last
was
year.
last year.
He was a little tough on the because he flashed and then did nothing. It was boom or bust.
Right.
It was tough to.
A guy, now this is going away from the top 5, but a guy I'm also a little leery of taking a step back, Wes Welker. Normally a 100-catch guy, going to Denver. I just don't see enough balls going around there.
Right.
I'm putting him at 70 catches, still going to get probably 1,000 yards, but that's a guy.
He would be your perfect third receiver.
He would be, yes, absolutely.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So a guy you don't have to rely on, but a good security blanket if you need.
Right. And as far as the rookies coming out, everyone's high on Tavon Austin.
Yeah.
I'm not that high on him. Now, a keeper league, obviously, I'd look at him later in the draft, but I would not look at him to be a guy you're going to use the number 1 or 2 guy.
If you want to win your league, I would go with established wide receivers.
Yes.
I always would. I would take somebody's second or maybe even a solid third, and I can give you a solid third. Dallas, before I take Tavon Austin.
I agree. And, I love to take running backs, rookies early. I do not take rookie wide receivers. Randy Moss happened once.
Yeah,
it isn't going to happen again.
It's fun to take rookies because you take that chance. One of these times you're going to look like a genius. You really are.
But with receivers, more often than not, you're going to look like a goat.
It's
you
tough.
really are.
It's real tough on receivers. Yep.
Moving on to tight ends, there is such a top-heavy drop-off from the top 3 guys. If you don't get one, let it all play out till the end because you might as well flip a coin.
And who are the top 3 now that Gronkowski's probably out? I mean, that's a hands-off guy for
me
right now.
Jimmy Graham, obviously clear-cut number 1. Jason Witten, a clear-cut number 2 for me. And then Gonzalez would be number 3 on my board.
That's again by default. Vernon Davis, a close 4.
Oh, Vernon Davis, I forgot. He'd also, but there's 4 guys. I'd probably put him ahead of Gonzalez because with Crabtree going down, Davis is going to be a little bigger part of their offense. So that's my top 4. I know you like Kyle Rudolph a little bit. He might be the next step, but I don't touch him. I don't know what's going to happen to this Vikings offense. I wouldn't take him. Owen Daniels, maybe a guy after the big hype last year. You can get him a little later, but he's him, Rudolph.
There's guys in this list I don't recognize.
Yeah, Jermichael Finley. Take your pick. You might get boom.
You might get lucky.
And you might get bust with him. Dennis Pitta was a guy I would have looked at maybe in that area, but now he's gone.
He's gone, right.
So, Ed Dixon, does he do much for you in Baltimore? I don't think so.
No. And there's a position too. If you find a rookie that might start, and I don't even know who it is, maybe you could grab him and
you're not going to miss much
and catch gold. Yeah. But again, if you can lock up that tight end, you're going to have to reach for him. You're going to have to reach for Graham.
Well, Jimmy Graham's a 2nd round draft.
I'm going to say you're going to have to take him in the 2nd round.
But he's a difference maker. The difference between him and the next bunch of tight ends, he's going to outscore them by 15 points a week. He can win leagues with him.
He stays healthy, he's going to win you a league.
Well, here's a perfect example. On my keeper team, I have Kelvin Johnson, Jimmy Graham, Doug Martin, and Colin Kaepernick. I can only keep 2 of them. I'm going to keep Johnson and Graham because Graham is that much of a difference maker. I'll find my quarterback. I'll find my running back.
I don't think it's a question.
But that's how much I value
if
Jimmy
you
Graham.
have Jimmy Graham in a keeper league, hold on to him. That's your clear cut. That's going to put you a cut above the rest of the people, and that's going to win you some games. But yeah, that's right. Take Jimmy Graham if you can, because the cutoff, the drop off in there. Even Jason Witten's a drop off.
Oh, he is. Jason Witten's clearly the second best tight end. He's a 100-catch guy. Everyone thought he was washed up last year. He produced, and he's going to be good this year. The Cowboys' offense is going to be good. The team might not be good. Offenses are going to be great. Witten's 100 catches, 1,100 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Put it in the bank. He's very solid. He's like gold.
Yeah.
He's a great investment.
Yeah.
You know what you're getting with him. You don't have to worry about the stock market going crazy. Witten's always going to be a good investment.
I took Gronkowski last year in the top 15, 16 picks because I wanted that security blanket. I wanted to try it out. It was a great because he got me to the playoffs.
Right, and then when you got hurt, it single-handedly cost you, but it got you there.
But point being, my second tight end, I'm sitting there in the 10th, 11th round looking around. I'm like, Jason Witten's still on the board because he had that spleen issue.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be out till week 4. Turns out did he start week 1 or 2? Was it 1?
Week 1, he played. Week 2, I know he was effective. Yeah, I mean, it took a couple weeks, but he was great all year. He really was. He had 20 catches one game last year.
So
yeah.
Not only do I get a good tight end, backup tight end, I keep that tight end away from somebody else.
Right, and in some leagues, you have flexibility to play a tight end as a wide receiver.
Right.
You can play both Gronkowski and Witten, and you're better off than half the teams in the league.
Absolutely, right.
Yeah, I agree.
But,
and if Aaron Rodgers scores 30 a week, Matt Ryan scores 26 a week. There's not much difference there.
No.
Jimmy Graham at 25 and Owen Daniels at 8. Huge difference.
Yep.
That's where you can win leagues.
And
as a tight end.
there's a security blanket when you can start your tight end and not have to sit there and fiddle with it and be like, who do I start? Oh my God, you're playing matchups.
Yeah, you are playing. That's when you get into trouble. Outthinking yourself. Absolutely. You want a guy, plug him in, leave it alone, and don't worry about it.
You get Jimmy Graham, you're gonna be set. That's one of our guys that you both agree on. That's gonna be a difference maker for sure.
The last 2 positions, kicker and defense, these are my last 4 picks in the draft every year. Don't care. Defense. If someone's going to be dumb and take the Bears defense after last year, knock yourself out. That's great.
It always starts runs too. And whenever someone takes the first tight end, you're going to see a run. Let them do it.
Yes.
Let them take all the kickers. Let them take all the defenses.
A league has never been won or lost with defense in the history of fantasy football.
I will always wait till the last 2 picks. I'll find some. Kickers aren't even set. I don't even know who half the kickers are in the league because nobody does.
Well, Blair Walsh comes out of nowhere. Some guy will do that just like he did
every year.
Every year. You want to kick a kicker that plays in warm weather in a dome. That's as big an advantage as having a guy who plays for a team that scores a lot. You know what's going to happen. Look at what happened in Green Bay last year. High-scoring team. The kicker was awful. And you would have been better off taking someone from Tampa because they split some points on the board. He played in nice weather,
You're I just take a kicker that out from a team that scores a lot of points.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Cowboys, Saints,
Broncos, Patriots,
Niners. Throw them all in there.
Right.
Even Seattle probably scored a lot of points this year. Take one of those kickers; they're gonna be there.
Yeah, Blair Walsh, a guy you could take, but is he gonna be as good as last year? He almost can't be. He was deadly from beyond 50 yards. He possibly can't be that good. The Vikings are gonna be a little better offensively, but you got lightning in a bottle with that guy.
I also take kickers that generally kick indoors or have a home indoor stadium or have calmer weather. Like in December when it might matter, where 3 points might matter to you to make a win. A little bit more better feeling when they're kicking in Florida or in a dome than Green Bay or Chicago or Buffalo. Yeah, exactly right. So pay attention to where your kicker kicks.
Right.
And a perfect example is Atlanta. Matt Bryant.
Yeah.
He's a good kicker. He's going to score points in a good team that plays indoors.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So.
All right. Well, that kind of wraps up fantasy. Something we love.
It's not that hard. You just have to find chemistry. You got to have a little bit of luck and a little bit of brains.
And at the end of the day, if you take guys you like and you can just enjoy watching them play, it's fun.
It is fun.
Absolutely. Whether you win or lose, no one likes losing, but if you have guys, it sucks to lose with guys you hate.
Yeah.
It's not so bad to lose with guys that you like.
You're going to have seasons where everything goes to hell, where everyone gets injured, and someone doesn't perform as well, or you try to outsmart yourself and you lose out on some points, but just let it happen. Let it have fun.
Right. So hopefully this helped a little bit. A couple guys maybe you take out of here, and maybe a little bit of strategy you use from us. That'd be great. But if you like something, don't like something, feel free to leave us a note on YouTube here or Facebook as you're watching it. So that's Mike. I'm Kent. Thanks for checking out the Sports Underground. We're glad to be back with you, and we'll have a few more videos up for you as well. Thanks.